Thomas Barrington with the Crossroads of America Council with part 2 on wilderness navigation. Last week I talked about the map and why it's the foundation of all navigation and how you can truly often navigate, even in a wilderness environment and a wilderness trail system, with just the map alone, when you know how to interpret all the symbols and information that a map contains, and when you utilize it consistently throughout your travels. But there's also another very popular tool, and that's a compass. A compass is something that all scouts want, and it is one of the essentials, 10 essentials for scouting. One of the most popular versions of a compass that we often see is just a round compass, usually with a lid and then this little peephole sight that pops up. Those are very good compasses for shooting bearings, and one of the key skills that a Scouts BSA learns is how to shoot a bearing. However, those compasses aren't the best design for utilizing with a map. For that, a compass that looks more like this, with a big, flat, and straight base plate, really is the compass you want for working with a map. And trying to find a compass that has a mirror to help shoot bearings, which is what that round compass design does really well, helps with that, shooting the bearing. But also, if you get one where the cover is in line with the base plate, you just extended the length of your straight edge. Is that really that important? The answer is yes. When you start to use map and compasses together, especially for plotting your course or finding where you are by shooting a bearing, you'll find quite often that you're going to need a longer straight edge than what you might have when you're backpacking or hiking. That's why if you can get it in your compass, it's so important. There's a lot of things on a compass. There's magnetic north. So this really what's orange on my compass, but is red on most of them, is the magnetic side of the needle, which will point towards magnetic north. There's the 360 degrees of the dial, which also rotates. There's, probably hard to see, but there's scales, different scales on here, both inches and centimeters. Again, there's the mirror, there's some sight lines. This particular version also is glow-in-the-dark features. Another thing you might see is there's this little black arrow that's pointing down. And as I turn it, it's still pointing down. You know, most compasses just point north. This particular one, with the straight edge, I can also measure the slope of an angle. That's pretty technical skill when it comes to wilderness navigation. There's also some other non-navigation features where being able to do that, measure the angle of a slope, can be pretty useful. So you can also find that in tools. This particular compass also has the ability to what's called set your declination. Now, what's declination? It's the difference between true north and magnetic north. There is a difference. And here's another thing. It moves and changes. That's right, the declination in one area, the difference between magnetic north and true north today, will be different 20 years from now. That's because magnetic north actually kind of wobbles around true north. Now here in Indiana, the difference between magnetic north and true north really isn't that great, and you don't have to worry about it too much unless you're truly traveling off of the bearing, off of a direction on a compass for a long period of time. Now, if you were backpacking or hiking in the state of Washington, the declination could be 15 or 20 degrees. That's a lot. So even over a short distance, you could end up in a very different place if you don't take into account declination. Again, this particular compass actually has this fancy little screwdriver here and a little tiny screw way in the back, and I can set the declination for the area that I'm in. Don't forget to check it and reset it when you travel. I've learned that one by mistake. Another important aspect of a compass is actually this right here, the string. and trying to find a string or lanyard that doesn't stretch. Much like the straight edge, having a string and something that doesn't stretch to utilize with the map is actually quite important. One of the things that you might do quite often is to try to figure out how far you're going to hike or have hiked. I know this is a little bit hard to see, so I'm actually going to use this as a boundary line. Actually, I'm going to use this boundary line right here that moves. I can take the string and start to measure that path. And now I know that while it wasn't a straight line, I can take that distance and measure it to the scale on the map and find how far I need to hike or I have hiked. So having a bendable edge, but again, one that doesn't stretch. I also speak from experience that all of a sudden you thought you had to hike a lot further than you did because you accidentally stretched that cord while you were measuring the distance on a trail. One other kind of unique thing about a compass that a lot of people don't know is, did you know that there's different magnetic fields to the Earth? And a compass in one place may not work in another. So for example, if you were to buy a compass for the magnetic fields in the northern hemisphere and then took it to the southern hemisphere of our planet, it would not point to true north. It will also get caught and not spin correctly. There's also compasses, and actually this compass is a world compass and is balanced, the needle is balanced to work in all 5 magnetic zones. Now, truth is, unless you know you're traveling internationally, you really won't have to worry about that. But that's just one of those little tidbits sometimes people don't realize about how a compass works. There's a ton of information out there. Actually, REI.com, the retailer, has a great tutorial both on maps and the parts of and how to use a compass. I suggest seeking out that tutorial on their website. I mentioned the book Staying Found last week, and again, I absolutely love that book and its viewpoint about always just staying found and knowing where you are to begin with. But another great book that I want to mention, kind of sounds a little odd, but is Be Expert with Map and Compass. This is definitely more for our Scouts BSA. It's a little bit of a tougher read, but it gets very technical if you really want to learn about how to utilize a compass with a map. It too also goes into detail about map-only use as well. So that's our primer on wilderness navigation. Again, map first, then compass. And we talked about GPS last week. That's an advanced skill, but the map and then the compass is the foundation where every scout should start.